conjugal love, okay? Now I want to explain to you what the word conjugal means, because it's a word, if you look it up in some dictionaries, it will say conjugal is a term Swedenborg made up to mean true love in marriage. Do you think you need to know that on the exam? Of course.
How do you say that?
I-A-G-E. So the thing is, and there's some dispute about this, but I believe it. From what I've read, is that Swedenborg was trying to say there's this. I'm not just talking about love. I'm not just talking about marrying somebody and having kids. I'm talking about if you're working together and you grow together and you keep working at it spiritually, you can have an awesome marriage. You can have a spiritual marriage, very deep, meaningful marriage. But he's like, but there's no word for it. So he took this word. Conjugal just means marriage, married, love in marriage. So that doesn't, conjugal doesn't do it. And it was kind of like, I will insert an I in it, conjugial, or in Latin, he wrote in Latin, like conjugialis or whatever. And that will make it a special word on its own. So it really is a word that you won't find anywhere else, except for in Swedenborg's teachings about marriage. Now, one of the main things that Swedenborg says about marriage is that he says that people who love is eternal. Now we kind of know that if we study, because when we studied God, that whole idea of eternal love, that God is love itself. But he says, poets know it. I wrote in the book, poets know it, lovers know it, singers, musicians know it, that love lasts forever. And so, his whole idea is that you're going to, in this world, if you are working together with your partner, your wife or husband or whatever like that, in a committed relationship at the very least, in a committed relationship, that you can grow and that you will continue to grow forever. When you go into the other world, you will stay with your partner. You will be with your partner and you will grow forever. And he also says if you don't have a partner in this world, but you're a good person heading to heaven, you'll find your partner in the other world. Well, Swedenborg says, so love is eternal, and actually that was very controversial in his day. And in fact, it's controversial among a lot of, say, more literal Christians today, that no, we're not married in heaven. And part of the reason for that is because in the Bible, Jesus actually seems to indicate that you're not married in heaven. But you have to know the story about why he said what he said. He actually said to them, you are in error. They are neither married nor are given in marriage in the resurrection, but are as the angels. Which is like, well, what does that mean? As the angels. But people have said, well, that means that they're not married. There are ministers today, some really Christian ministers, very popular today, TV or internet ministers with huge congregations that say, look, I just don't get that. I really, really want to be, and I know I will be with my wife for eternity. And so they're just trying to figure out what he means. But remember, we talked about last time, there are certain truths in the Bible that are so innocent and so special that you really can't, you're not going to see them until you're able to see them, so that they're not perverted. So people aren't, if the most special teachings of God were innocent teachings were given to the wrong people, they would just laugh at them or tear them up or whatever in their own minds and hearts. So they're not given. So this is one of those places where Jesus didn't come out and basically say what is true. Or he didn't tell them. It's not like he lied. He didn't tell them. So what happened was there was this group of people, again, sort of like the scribes and Pharisees, the rulers of Israel, that were called the Sadducees. And the Sadducees didn't believe in the afterlife. And so what they wanted to do was kind of trick him up, so they told this story. And the story is it tells you a lot about that culture at that time and their lack of respect for women and for marriage. So they were like this, okay, so Jesus, so this man and woman got married and the man died. Now, the insurance policy in those days was that the man's brother had to marry the woman. That was the insurance policy. So then they went on to say, so then that man died. And then, so she married him. And then that man died. So she had to marry the next guy, brother. And then that man died. And they said, so all these guys, like, they're dead. And then they go, who, and listen to these words, who's going to have her in the other world? You know, like, have her like she was a possession. Which one's going to have her? And so if you think about that, what kind of marriage is that, right? It's even less than a contract. I mean, you know, with two people, really. I mean, if that kind of thing is happening. So Jesus wasn't going to go, well, actually, folks, there's this thing called true love. And two people can come together and really give to each other. You know, it was like they were so far away from that. He just basically goes, that doesn't happen in heaven. You know, that doesn't happen. You know, now they're at the angels, and someday maybe you'll figure out, or maybe someday you'll be ready to hear what really does happen. But you people are so far away from understanding what marriage is about, even understanding what the different sexes are about, and treating everybody equally. I'm not going to go there. I am not going to go there for you. So people have come away with the idea that, you know, oh, okay, so Jesus really is meaning there that, you know, no one continues on after death together. They're all just we're all this kind of sexless its or whatever that walk around. Doesn't make sense. Another key, a real key, I think, is that spiritual growth and relationships and love go hand in hand. And this is true with any kind of love, really. I mean, real love, spiritual growth, and love go together. Okay, I'm going to change that a little bit because Swedenborg basically says what he says is marriage goes together. Meaning a good marriage, spiritual growth. Now you might think, well, duh, right? I mean, of course it does. You know, of course, you know, growth and love, you know, it's going to go together. But people have not always done that or even think about it that way. A lot of people, and this is very normal and natural, when you meet somebody and you fall in love with them, you know, you might say, they do so much for me. You know, oh, that person makes me feel good. That person makes me feel like I'm important in this world. That person makes me laugh. That person, da-da-da. And that's normal. I mean, that's the falling in love that's kind of almost like, oh, wow, you know, when you start to get to know somebody. And that's, you know, and that's what attracts us. But real love, that goes away after time. It's not a value. Real love is not about what you get from somebody. And again, as a matter of fact, the more you think about what you're going to get, can anybody give you what you need inside? No. You know, I can't make you happy, you know. I can't give you whatever you need so that you're going to live a life that's just joyous and beautiful. And so when we think about, I'm here in this relationship to get, it's not only dissatisfying, we start getting judgmental toward them. They can't meet our needs. We think, oh, maybe I married the wrong person because we're looking at it in terms of that person is not actually doing, and it's completely opposite of that. It's two people coming together to give to each other, absolutely, but to give. And so that's, you know, Jesus is saying that about every human being should be a giving, loving human being. And Swedenborg comes along and says, use all those things Jesus said, or all the religions say, in your relationship, and that will make it grow. You know, that will make it grow if you use those things. And so those things really are like what Jesus says, love one another as I have loved you. Go the second mile. If somebody asks you to go a mile, go another one with them. You know, take the shirt off your back and give it to them if they need a shirt, kind of thing. Forgive them. Forgive and you will be forgiven. And the interesting thing is, I mean, it's a lot of work to do that in a relationship that you, like, say you're living with somebody. Like, isn't it sometimes a lot of work to have somebody, you know, roommate in the dorm? I mean, you know, it can be a lot of work, you know, to try to get along with that. Well, imagine you're with somebody for years, right? I mean, and there's certain things that are going to bother you about them. You know, they leave stuff all over the place. They never clean up the dishes. They squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube the wrong way. You know, all these really important not things, but they can get annoying. And so it's at that time, it's interesting, being around for a long time and having done a lot of counseling and just life. You know, I practically know no one well, that's a bad way to put it. Almost everyone I know who's married at one time or another goes through this time of feeling like it's not there anymore. It's not working. It's kind of flat. It's kind of dead. That's the place where it goes, where if you start working on your relationship, it goes from simply infatuation and wondering what I'm going to get out of them. That's when you start doing your own hard work, and then it comes back alive. It's even better. I'll say it. The sex is better, that kind of thing. With that kind, down the road, with that kind of intimacy and connection with each other on a spiritual level, and everything gets better. And so it's a growth thing that happens over time. So the most important thing you can do to work on your marriage, I'm just going to put most important. You're going to have to remember the rest. The most important thing you can do to work on your marriage is to work on who? On yourself. Now, isn't that true about life? If you want to have a meaningful, happy life, how can I improve in my life? How can I become more peaceful? How can I become more generous to people? How can I become, everything? More trusting. That's the whole thing. When you take these things and you apply them to your marriage, it does wonders. It's really easy, like Jesus says, love your neighbor, to think about the neighbor as being, the person down the street. I love them. It's really much harder to love that person that's with you all the time. It's effort. I think it's interesting. Nature, infatuation is nature's way of getting us together and procreating the human race, having kids. It's that way, keeping the generations of human beings going. But actually, spiritual connection is God's gift, that we can get when we really work on a relationship. Do all relationships work? Heck no, they don't. In today's world, number one, it's very easy to get a divorce. Number two, there's lots of reasons, that people get divorced, and we know that. I think every family today has, knows of or has gone through a broken family of some kind or another, and it happens. And I'm not saying, it happens, and there's legitimate things that come up and will, take a marriage down. But at the same time, I think you get what I mean. If you go in there with the idea that it's going to, I can do something about this, I can make it better, it's only going to help. It's kind of like going into a sport and taking it seriously, like I'm going to work on this and I'm going to get better and better at this and cooperate with the team or whatever it is and really hone my skills. You're going to be a better player, whatever you're doing there. You're going to be a better teammate as well. So it's true across the board, but your team with your partner. Get to that. I have three things that I want to talk about that I tell if someone asks me, will you marry us? I get that occasionally, obviously, baptisms, marriage, funerals, things like that. I say, yeah, but there's three things that I want you to know or think about. And pretty much we covered what they were. I'm a minister, so I'm going to put this: God should be in the center of your relationship. And what I mean by that, obviously, I mean God. In the sense of if God really is love itself, if God really is all-powerful love itself, why wouldn't you ask him to come in, with that love and that power, into your relationship? But even more than that, it simply means, is there something higher? Are you looking to something higher in your relationship, like we just talked about? Not simply looking at that person to meet your needs, but together, are you looking at something higher? I remember somebody did this for once. They said, okay, so here's God up here. I'll just make him a star today. And there are two people. Here goes my stick figures, right? And they could be like this and love each other, but I just love this. But if they're both looking toward an ideal, something higher, and you go like that, the more they are growing together and looking toward God, the closer they get. The closer they get. So this is really key. Another thing that's key, and I could tell you, I will. This actually was somebody that told me this, and I've heard this before, especially with somebody religious. But this one guy was telling me about, he was getting into something lust type thing. He had been married for quite some time. And he was starting to really, really feel like this isn't the one, and there was possibility of, of actually being unfaithful, and he said he was on an airplane and he was really coming, thinking about this and this temptation. And he goes, why should I not go off with this woman? Why should I not? There's nothing in me that's telling me that I shouldn't do it. Everything in me feels like this is maybe not the right thing, but the thing I want to do. And a voice comes in and says to him basically, or his conscience says, why not? Why? Because God said so. Kind of like it came all the way down to, he was a Christian. Because God said, don't do that. And that was enough to stop him. But the cool thing that he said, and this is I've been in like different, as you know, men's groups over the years and stuff like that. Been in one men's group for 30 years. The guy said, and after that, as I made the turn, I turned it, things started getting better. It was almost immediately because my attitude changed. I put myself back in the game and things started getting better. So this idea of having, what's the authority greater than you? Because if you don't have an authority greater than you, who's your authority? You. And how do you it can be a closed loop. How do you get outside of that loop to see that there actually may be truth out there or leading out there that's going to make you even a better person? If it's all about you and you're the most important person in the world and you're special and all truth comes from you. No, I think we'd all agree, even if you haven't figured out or that you even believe in God, is that we need to open up and be willing to learn, and listen to people. So this is key. It's really key. And then the next one I won't have to even say much about, but because, I'll do them in a different order. Using God's principles in your life. And I already talked about that, or rules in your marriage. And Jesus, Swedenborg especially talks about Jesus's words, because Jesus is, in the Old Testament, you do get all of this, fire and brimstone and, all that. But, Jesus is so strong about loving people and forgiving people and the healing and all that. So, Swedenborg says, you follow Jesus's words, like in Christianity, and it's going to happen for you. It's going to happen. So, of course, he would say that he's a Christian. And so, like following God and Jesus, who are the same person, okay, is going to help you in your life. And the last one is interesting because it is, believe your marriage is eternal. Or your love. And this is interesting, in a wedding, what do they often say? Do you take such and such for your beloved, and have hold and all that until death do you part? Until death do you part, right? And the thing about that is, it's like in the new church we don't say that. We don't say until death do you part. We believe that you're going to. We hope that you're going to go on together. But when you say I'm going to be, you see the difference. When you believe that your love is eternal, it's bigger than the both of you. It's something super special. It's something that's not going to end. But when you think, I'm going to be with you for 40 years and then it's over, it just changes the name of the game. It's like it's a different game. It's a much more materialistic or flatter look at relationships. I'm only going to spend this much time. You're my friend. I'm going to spend 30 years with you and then it's over. But the idea that we have friendships that are bigger, I hope you do have a friend that, or maybe more than one, that you really feel is so connected to. It's kind of bigger than just spending time together, which is interesting. Wanted you to see certain things, and they're right here. You got to know conjugal love means true love in marriage. True marriage love, if you want to put it that way, it's an ideal that Swedenborg says, we're not just going to have it. It's something to strive for, like up here, something to strive for. And that this love is eternal. It's never going to die. If you continue to work on it and grow. If you don't get a partner in this world, you're going to get one in the world to come. If you're a good person, you're trying and you want to be a heavenly person and go to heaven. And then spiritual growth and love, any kind of love, but especially love in marriage, spiritual growth is the key to working on yourself, the key to having a good marriage. And we already talked about these: God at the center, using God's principles in life, and believe your marriage is eternal.